Well, here I am. Took a while. I pressed going live and it said you are going live, and then it just span round and looked at me for a bit. Ah, I've got a light here. I'm trying to get sort of Halloween ambient lighting. I'm not sure I'm succeeding. Oh, if you're in the UK of a certain age, I'm like Hank Marvin. I'm in the shadows. He was in a band with Cliff Richard called The Shadows. Did a song called Telstar. Do, 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 do. I'm not sure that's even Telstar, to be honest. Dum, 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 dum. I think that's Telstar. Yeah, so here I am, going live, going mental. I've had a funny day. Started this morning. If if I've got to get up really early, um, because I don't go to bed until about 3, and then if I've got to be up at say 7, I stay. I don't go to bed. I stay. I just lie on the settee, listening to music, um, and we had, because we rent our house, so we have to have a gas check by the landlord once a year, and it was today. So this fellow was coming at 8, so I stayed up. I've been up all night. Um, Got a bit of a dose, but it's not the same, is it? And then, uh, so I got a phone call then, 20 to 9, because he said he was coming between 8 and 1, which he did. That's not the problem. So at 20 to 9, he said, I'm coming. I said, oh, great. So 9 o'clock, he turned up. By 9:30, he'd done the gas boiler check, but found a gas leak outside. So then he said, I've got to send for a man who's going to come and mend it. I said, oh, okay. It'll be 2.5 hours. Okay. And you can't do anything. I've got to turn all the gas off. It was freezing. So I was wrapped in a little blanket, huddling like some Dickensian character, thinking, oh man, that's gone wrong. I went downhill very dark very quickly. And then no sooner had he gone than I set the dog out. And then I came back and I started to do YouTube things. I've done a video, but I couldn't get the thumbnail right, so I haven't finished it. So it sat on the phone, waiting to be published. But then straight after this, at 9 o'clock, Greenwich Mean Time, if you're in the UK, at 9 p.m., I need to go and watch a television program that I really enjoy called Gogglebox. So it's all gone. Today has gone. It's a blur. It's a blur, sir. A complete blur. The last video I've just done is I've got some boxes out of the attic, and they're full of figures. And I've done a few videos where I've looked at old figures and either said what they were or claimed to know who made them and got it wrong, because I've not seen some of them for 50 years, 45 years. So I got a box of random figures and I've popped them out, and I'm asking you, my delightful viewers, to see if you can identify them for me. So that's the video I'm doing, and then I couldn't get the thumbnail right, and I've tried to be clever. I've tried to do some opening music between video. I'm not going to do it on every video. I'm only going to do it on some of the face-to-face ones where it seems appropriate. So I don't come in so abruptly. Bang, oh, it's me. So I thought that might be fun to do anyway. So I like the sound of that. So I've been doing that. But I've had to put all the bits together in pieces. Like 4. So I ended up with 6 stills that I've then had to edit together. So I've been doing that. Took longer than I thought, trying to marry them all up. So yeah, all in all, today has been a blur. Hope tomorrow's less of a blur. So yeah, I've been doing that. I've been reorganising my 6mm army, because it transpired I got an awful lot of the abilities wrong. So I sort of went off what I guessed largely. And Shaco, and what other people who play Shaco have told me. I mean, I was told by someone who played Shaco pretty much exclusively that cuirassiers were worth 6. They're not. If you look historically, if in Shaco the best you can be is a 6, but the cuirassiers weren't the best French cavalry. They have better cavalry than that. So presumably they're a 6, which pushes cuirassiers down to 5. Similarly, the Guard Cossack, who I had as very poor a 3, I think. Turns out, if you get ChatGTP to analyze all of the factors on that, small scale 1 to 6, they come out as a 5 as well. So now I'm thinking, well, what I'm going to have to do to differentiate is, say, perhaps impact heavy cavalry charging against other cavalry, I'm thinking now. So maybe heavy cavalry charging, heavy cavalry charging, give them +2. Medium cavalry, give them +1. And then cavalry just get their factor, light cavalry. So that would make sense, because that would mean in a charge, in the initial charge phase, heavy cavalry, cuirassiers come up against Guard Cossacks. The cuirassiers are going to be better because they're going to get +2. No, they're going to get +1, aren't they? No, they're not. They're going to get +2 because they're heavy cavalry. And the Lancers, Cossacks aren't going to get anything. So they are going to be better without detracting. And that wouldn't be true if it went on into a melee or if it wasn't a head-on charge, because you wouldn't get the impact. Or if it was a counter charge, you wouldn't get the impact. Although in Shaco, you don't get counter charges unless you do what I do, which is fiddle with the rules. Because you throw dice for initiative. So if my cavalry, if I throw a 6, I'm going to go before you. We've modified it a bit, because what we do, we don't just throw for the entire army. We throw for each section, each area commanded by a general. Each general throws. We do all the 6s on both sides, and then all the 5s and 4s and 3s and 2s and 1s. And that means you can't guarantee you're going to go. You might go last in a turn. You might go first in the next turn. So in effect, you might get 2 turns. But it's sort of a bit unpredictable, a bit like drawing cards or counters in Test of Honor. You just never know how it's going to work out. But I'm not a fan of my cavalry gets a charge, and because it's my turn, I'm going to charge into your cavalry, and your cavalry are just going to be stood there doing nothing. I had this a few weeks ago in a game where, mysterious door opened. Come here, Rollo. Yeah. Oh, look, little dog nose. A little doggy nose. I'll show you my boy. There he is. There he is, my beautiful boy. You thought it was a bogeyman, didn't you? You thought somebody had been killing chickens. You thought it was a poltergeist. I might have to get up in a minute because he shut the door behind him, and he is not going to like that. We'll see how it goes. I'm not going to jump up necessarily yet. He'll let me know in a minute. So the charging, I don't like that. So what I've said when I umpire a game is if cavalry are charging, you've got to throw your morale factor or less. So cuirassiers would have to get, well, it'd have to be less, wouldn't it? Otherwise, this level 6 cavalry would always charge. So it would have to be, cuirassiers are a 5, D6 have got to get 4 or less. If they do, they charge. And they could move a quarter. Have to move a quarter, whoever, if they're charging at you or me, I then throw, and I need my morale factor for my reaction. And if I pass, I can countercharge or try and evade. And if I fail, I still dither in and they come again. And then I'll do it again till we get impact. I am going to have to get up and open the door for my little darling because he's pasting. So, yeah, I'm not going to say. You'll see me in a minute out the back anyway. Come on, let's open the door for you. Let's open the door for you. There you go. Good boy. Okay. Don't worry, door left open. Put the bin there like that, and then you can come and go as you please. Oh. Right. There we go. I think we solved that problem. So I've been reorganising my armies because they're quite big. It's a big job. So I've got to have it done by 5 o'clock Monday. It's Friday today, so I've a lot to do. And some of them need repainting, like the Empress Dragoons. The French Empress Dragoons need the plumes on their helmets changing because they're black, the same as all the other dragoons, and they need to be red. I think I'm going to do them red, make them stand out. Because that's another problem with 6mm. They look great on the battlefield, but you dodgy eyes, you can't tell what's what. Which brings me to another point. I don't know what to do. If I put my glasses on, you go all blurry. But if you take my glasses off, I can't read anything. It's not blurry, but I can't read it. So, I don't know. I might well be leaning forward, popping my glasses on, whatever. I've had a big tidy up this week, so you might not quite notice it because the table over my shoulder is full of things I've been using for filming today and yesterday, and I need to do some more with them. So there's no point taking them downstairs to the other wargaming room, which is the garage, in effect, because they'll only come back up again. So, but there has been a lot of organisation and tidying up. I've got some bits and bobs coming to make the room look a bit more professional, and you'll see them hopefully over the next couple of weeks as things arrive and getting installed. So ready for, I would hope by November we'll be up and running. I'm planning at least one game for Halloween. Hi Eric, hi mate, how you doing? All right. I've just noticed you. That's what I'm saying about me dodgy glasses. Hang on, let me have a read. Yeah, I'm touching them up. If I've got somewhere over the rainbow. Where have they gone? What have I done with them? Where are you? Somewhere I've got a lot of dragoons. I don't think I've put them back yet. What have I done with them? Oh, do you know? No, they're all Cossacks. Oh, hang on. What's that? Yeah, here we are. So in here, I've got some No, I haven't. Oh, I know what I've done. What I've done is I've redone the numbers on the bottom of them. But if you look like these Lancers at the moment, these are elite Cossacks, Guard Cossacks. So I don't know how well you can see them. They're sort of quite red. I might make them a bit more green and then just leave. If I go over the sleeves and just leave the cuffs, and I can leave that red floppy bit on the top of the hats. I tend to find because of the shakes, I have to sort of paint an entire uniform, and then I go back and paint in between the cuffs and the shoulders. I sort of maybe paint that green and try and leave that first bit, because if I paint it green and then put that on, this ends up too big. So on the smaller scales. Yeah, you're right, Eric. The late Eric. Sounds a bit ominous, doesn't it? I have to fiddle with my glasses. I've got some different glasses. I'm going to have a look for them. Hang on. Oh. How's your day been? It's marginally better. Eek. I don't know if the inking would, because you on the model you don't have the detail. So, like on a sleeve, it's the same all the way down. There isn't an actual molded bit of cuff. Whereas on 10 mil, which is I have an American Civil War army. Well, I have a Confederate army, and my brother has a Union army. They do have the actual molded things, like you start to get 20, 25, 28 mil, but the smaller ones, there's not a lot of detail really. So yeah, inking and shading don't really work. Even dry brushing doesn't really work on 6 mil. Excellent. Are the in-laws wargamers? Have you got a game on? Yeah, well, they're probably pretty good judges of character. Yeah, I know all my wife's family think I'm a bit strange. Yeah, well, that's the thing, isn't it, really? We're all different. My brother-in-law, Dave, he married my wife's sister. Sadly, my wife's sister died far too young. But Dave, he's a model railway chap. When he was more able, because Yvonne was the youngest of her family, so her brother and sister were teenagers when she was born. But Dave is a model railway enthusiast, really. And when he was fit enough, which he isn't at the moment, he had a model railway in the attic. So although model railways were different to wargaming, we could both enjoy the scenic terrain side of stuff. And I did actually make what I would almost like 20 mil war games building type things for his railway layout. So you know, we had he could appreciate what I was doing, and I could appreciate what he was doing, although they were sort of slightly different. But I mean, all of my no, that's not true. I have two brothers, one of whom is we've all been gamers. My middle brother was a gamer, not so much now. He's still interested in fantasy literature, um, but he doesn't actually game. But my little brother, who is now 14 years older than you, um, he's a gamer, and his sons, because he's brought them up proper, they're one's at university, he's in his 20s, and one's just finishing school. They're both gamers, and my children are both gamers, and my son-in-law married my daughter, and my daughter-in-law who married my son, who is an American girl. Felt like singing a Tom Petty song there. They're all gaming. Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, I've never got quite into the. Whenever I see a model railway at a museum or a display, I just want to put figures on it. I'm looking at it thinking, how would I capture that station or that goods yard? Um, so I immediately think of something else. I mean, I must say, my kids are tending to be more role players now. My daughter and her husband play Traveller, and my son and his wife play Call of Cthulhu. I keep looking at the number of people online because at the moment it's two, which I'm guessing is me and you. But last week when I went back through it, I spotted a third person that appeared, and I never noticed them, and I didn't get to say hello or anything. Yeah, have you played any of the online role play games where it throws the dice for you and you just go on your own, and there'll be people setting up games and invite you on? I've played it when my son Mike has created the game during lockdown and COVID. He created a Dungeons and Dragons type game, and we used to get together and play that. And so you got to throw a D10. The computer does it for you, and it just tells you the result. And it's what's fun about it. I found, if you've not done it, if you're in a forest or a cave system and it's dark, the computer only reveals what you can see. So if you light a torch, that it lights up more, but also it keeps a track of your torch burning down, and at some point tells you you've used a torch, and it keeps a track of the weight of your equipment, so you don't have sort of an infinite number of items. It's very clever. um, I can't remember what it's called. Is it called Roll D20 or something? I think it's free to download. Yeah, I think it's called Roll D20. Yeah, Roll D20. Yeah, well remembered. Good man. So I keep thinking I'll do that one day, but I don't have time. I'm so busy making YouTube videos and having war games and reorganizing armies that I thought I'd reorganized and sorted out. I hadn't realized till I started doing all of this history of wargaming things for this channel how old Traveller was. Didn't realize Traveller was a game sort of back in the 60s. I only was introduced to it in the mid-80s. So I thought that's when it came along. But I know a lot of people who play Traveller. Oh, great. Excellent. Excellent. Well, that would be good, won't it? I'm saying excellent. Well, at least we'll have a proper look. So are you on your phone now? All right. All right. Yeah. I've only ever played Traveller as a character. I have a sort of, he's a bit like Humphrey Bogart in the Maltese Falcon. He's a private detective, hard bitten gumshoe. All right, yeah. So yeah, my traveller character is a sort of Humphrey, but so is my Call of Cthulhu character because I like Humphrey Bogart. I like him in everything. I like African Queen, but I particularly like the Maltese Falcon. Oh, right. I've just bought a reprint of a game called Fall of Minas Tirith from the early 70s. I'm going to do a piece called The 5 Craziest Rules of the 70s or Craziest Games. And this Fall of Minas Tirith is one of them. I mean, it has rules like, and for a start, it's a massive game, big sheet, little hexes on. And you get 800 counters. Can you imagine trying to keep track of that? Well, if like a block of eagles attacks anything, they win. They're invincible. And if you're attacking somewhere like, it's all Gondor and then Minas Tirith is a big chunk of it. If you're attacking with siege towers, you toss a coin. Sort of like heads, the siege tower stands up, and tails, the siege tower falls over, which doesn't seem very wargaming, but so yeah, so I've got that. I don't know if I'll ever play it. Just look at the flipping counters. It blew my mind seeing all that lot. Our Mike might like it because he likes board games and he gets involved in gaming strategy. And it's probably, I would say, he's more of a board gamer than a war gamer. Oh, hi, Neil. Hi, mate. Yeah, it came about in, I think they made it in the early 70s, and there were like all these experimental rules. There's a game called something like Red Moon, White Bear. I have a novel I liked as a kid called Red Moon, Black Mountain. I think it's by Joy Chant. But I think this game's called something like White Bear, Red Moon, or something. And there's a game where you get a big template and it's a stompy foot, and it wipes out entire regiments. Or there's another game where one of the rules is if you get the magic card, you can make your enemy's entire army, literally everything, vanish into another dimension. And well, can you imagine doing that? It's called a vortex or something. And then another one where you literally can create a god that's invincible. Yeah, I thought some of the early Warhammer point systems were tricky. People would come with one soldier who's worth 20,000 points. You got 2,000 points army. Where is it? Oh, it's that captain there. What have you got? I've got, well, going to take me about 4 hours to set mine out. I've got goblins. I've got squats. I am not going to be doing actual gaming. So the nearest I'm going to come to a real game is going to be playing XCOM on the Xbox. But because I've got to reorganise the 6mm army before Monday, and I want to make at least one YouTube video tomorrow, and I've got one I'm in the middle of editing. So yeah, probably not. I'll probably not be doing much myself, but and I'm planning for a Halloween-y type game. I'm wondering about doing my oldest module from Dungeons and Dragons, Tomb of Horrors, which I got in 1979, I think, and I've still got it. So I thought that might be quite interesting to get the old figures out and replay it. And then the video I'm publishing at the moment is, I put them in a box. I found 3 boxes of figures in the attic, and when I opened it, they're all 45, 50 years ago. I was told some are Hinchcliffe, most I think are Citadel. They're probably, I bought them for Dungeons and Dragons. I remember running a club, a games club in the early 1980s, and some of the figures I recognise, and I think I recognise from that club. What about yourselves, guys? Eric, Neil, have you got games on? I mean, I'm lucky down here because we've got so many war games clubs. I mean, there's one where I literally live in Bideford, and then there's one in the next big town. Yeah, family come first. Well done, that man. The politically correct answer. Wherever in the world you are, that's the right answer. Yeah. So yeah, there are 3 clubs nearby, and once a month on a Sunday afternoon, there's a local church hall, and we hire the hall when the church is finished, and we war game from about midday to 7 o'clock at night, and people come from all over, every wargamer, or anyone's welcome. Oh, but hey, Neil, my mate Stuart he does Napoleon in Egypt. We've been doing a campaign based on that. I did some British landings as well. I don't know where they were. I know it was deserty and hot. And he's just acquired some ships, which he was saying, because he does it at 15 mil minifigs and Hinchcliffe. But he was saying the ships will just be scenery, really. Yeah, I know. What rule sets do you use for that? Stuart would be interested. I've never done Wellington in India, but we're doing East India Company 1680, just apropos of nothing. I suppose you could use Shaco, couldn't you? Which is what I use. Although in my club here in Bideford, I'm in a minority of 1. That one is me. So when it's my turn to put on a game, they have to lump it. And then we never play that again till we get around to my turn. But my favourite period actually is, well, I like English Civil War for modernish, modern, 1640 modern. I like English Civil War, and I like the Dark Ages, Dux Britanniarum, which I always struggle to say, so I have to spell it out. Oh yeah, Shaco 2 is what I play. But again, I've modified it. I don't play it exactly as it is. Yeah, you'll have to, at some point in the future, Eric, if you, maybe when we're messaging, if you give me your address, I could write out or photocopy our version of Shaco and post it to you. It hasn't got all the fancy pictures in and all the fillers, but it is the Shaco rules distilled. But I don't know if that's any use to you. I would imagine you two may well be more computer savvy than me, but I've got a photocopier that's linked to the internet and a good computer, so I might be able to send them, mightn't I? Oh, right. Yeah, I can't remember what Stuart Asquith games there was something I did by Stuart Asquith, but I don't know what it was. Oh, great. We'll sort that out. I was going to look for my phone and look something up, but my phone's charging because I ran out of battery. Oh, dear. Yeah, I find Shaco a bit, it's nice and simple because it's in stages. So you do the artillery, and then you do all your movement, and then you fire lines not engaged and skirmishers. Then you do melee. Then you resolve all your morale. If you lose a combat, you break and move back. If you might just move back an inch, or you might move back a route, which is 9. So at the end of every turn, after morale, everything is cleared up. You haven't got any rolling issues with taking melee into the next round and trying to remember things. And if a unit's worth 4, I'm trying to find a unit that's got its proper number on. These Prussians have got 4-1 on the bottom, so that's their factor. So if they lose 4, and I just have lots and lots of little numbers or micro dice, and so if they get hit, I put a 1 by them and a 2, and when they've lost 4, you take them off. So you don't have to keep a record, and you don't take individual figures off because they're not casualties. It's damaging the morale factor. And when their morale MF becomes 0, they've run out of esprit de corps, morale, energy, musket balls, whatever they've run out of, and they go home. And you penalised. So the unit, if that unit has 4 bases, but if it's lost 2 figures, two casualties, you don't do anything. It still throws 1d6 like it always did, but if it's got more hits than an opponent, it gets -1. And So I look at that and I say, okay, that's worth 4. You might be worth 5. You might be a guard unit. And then if you're defending at a wall, you might get another +1. But if I've got supporting units, I might get a +1. If I've got rear support, I might get a +1. And so you add all those up and you throw D6 and you add them to your unit. And the difference between winner and loser is the number of casualties that the loser takes. And it's just simple. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to write anything down. Yeah. So we like it. It resolves. It's not sophisticated because it's designed for big armies where you don't want to come away with a migraine because the rules are complicated. Yeah, I was thinking that, Neil, about when we play Napoleon, we use we use some old miniature figurines rules, which must have been around in the late 70s, early 80s. We started off playing Wargames Research Group, which does make your brain hurt. But back when I started wargaming in 72 at a club, that's when I first formally went to a club. It was Wargames Research Group. Yeah, cheers, man. And I'll send you mine as well. Apropos of nothing, but you know, a gesture of goodwill between our two great nations. We've enjoyed, Neil, the Napoleon in Egypt. My pal Stuart really enjoys that as a theatre of war because he likes doing things that are a bit different. We did First World War, but we do it in East Africa. He's quite keen on doing sort of early Second World War rather than later. There's a guy I know who does First World War, but he does it up until must be the Marne. Once trench warfare starts, he stops. He's still got lancers riding about and horse artillery limbering up. Because I don't know about you, I've always been fascinated by the Great War. I suppose mainly because I've got direct family that I knew who were in it. I mean, obviously, Second World War. My dad was really badly injured in the Second World War. I'm going to tell you this tale, Eric. Well, but I don't bear a grudge. My dad went over, he was 18 on D-Day. And he didn't go to France on D-Day. He went on the 3rd day, so D-Day +3. And he was attached to the American Army. He was at Nijmegen, Battle of the Rhine, and he went right through the war and some big battles, not a scratch. He was fine. And then when the war ended, he was engaged to a German girl. And they were coming home from a dance because my dad loved sort of ragtime music, all the boogie woogie stuff, played boogie woogie piano that he learned with the Americans. And they were coming home and he got ran over by a drunk American airman in a lorry. And he was in a coma for 6 weeks. And he was stuck in a British military hospital for 2 years. And by the time he recovered, the girl he was engaged to had got married. So that was the end of that. When my dad thought he was dying, well, eventually he was dying. He died, but he had he had a series of bad heart attacks. So he had a heart attack. He was convinced he was dying. And I suppose, in the interest of getting something off his chest, he said to me, "Mom, read me diaries from the end of the war, 45 to 47, because I want you to know," because they'd met 10 years later. So she read his diaries. It turns out that when he was in Germany, the girl he was engaged to was expecting a child, and he'd never mentioned that. And the reason was he didn't want to sort of go back to Germany and mess her life up. She may well have married a German, and nobody in the family even knew. We don't know what happened. There's no point speculating. But he didn't want to rock the boat. He thought about it. It wasn't a callous act. It was 2 years later when he was even able to go back and try and find her. But that's how my mum found out about my dad's previous engagement and illegitimate child. And then he got better. had to live with it. Yeah, I was reading something about Mamelukes. Never been right sure what they are. Can you enlighten me? I could be clever and pretend I know, and then go and look it up. I don't know. I think I've seen them in this. When I asked ChatGTP to rank the cavalry and infantry in 1812 using sort of genuine research and Shako's 1 to 6 scale. And I'm sure I saw Mamelukes in there. But I don't know, would they be Russian? I don't know. The other time we've been, I've got some camels from my colonial army, which is the Sudan, the Mahdist 1880 war. I've got British and Mahdist cavalry on camel. But the game we're planning at the moment, the 1680s East India Company versus pirates in India, using, we think, probably Donnybrook rules for skirmishers and then other rules for something else. But looking at the Mughal army, I was reading about a siege where the East India Company had really annoyed them, and they brought camels with artillery pieces and fired like little guns off the backs of the camels between the lug holes like that. Whether that's true, I don't know, but that's what the models will look like. Just while we sort of people are thinking and saying, and I don't know how much blank space to leave while people type because I have no hint at what's happening over here. I just want to say thanks for being there, guys. It's made a real difference for a long time. Well, I say a long time. I've been doing this coming up to 5 months now, and for a long time, I felt like I was wasting my time. I didn't get the I didn't have many subscribers, and I didn't have any comments, and I didn't have any interaction. And then suddenly, people like yourselves, especially, have sort of led this down a new path, and it's what I wanted. Oh well, right, elite calendar. Oh right, right. Is it Neil? Is you that 28 mil? Are you doing or 28 mil? Aren't they, Perry's? Mine are Perry's. I like Perry's. I tend to do. It's very. We do a game that's very character driven, a bit almost like role playing. So we all have named officers, and they tend to start off as lieutenants, or because you have British commanders, And you also have Sudanese Mahdist commanders, so that whichever you're playing, you can use your character, and they gain experience. And the British can swap experience points for medals, and there are reporters can come, and you can get fame and fortune by having a story written about you in the Times. And so you have 10 infantrymen, and they're all named, and they all have a history. And you have a lieutenant, and if you have 3 of those, they're commanded by a captain. And if you have 3 units that are mixed, so maybe cavalry and infantry, or they have an artillery piece, then they have to have a major, and so on. Yeah, well, yeah, think on. You dream on, Eric, by the entire catalogue. I went to see in Leeds, at Leeds Armories. I don't know if you ever saw this, Neil. Perry's did a massive display. It must have been 12-foot squarish in a glass cabinet of the Battle of Agincourt. And it was all their figures, and they'd handmade it. But when you looked down through periscopes strategically placed, that it took you into the battlefield. And a lot of the characters were modelled on people who work at the Perry's factory. So there were in the woods, there were 2 ladies, and they were stripping the armour off a dead Frenchman and running off with it. And apparently it was 2 of the girls that worked in the office, I was told. I was told by one of the Perry brothers. So if that's not true, somebody's been pulling my leg, and I'm not happy. When they unveiled it at Leeds Armories. And they also told me that when you look at it, it looks like every figure's painted. But apparently, the ones in the middle, where the melee is really tight, some of them don't even have legs. They don't need them because they're hidden by everything else. So they're sort of pinned or stuck to the ones next to them. But that's an amazing thing if you ever get to see it. It must be touring. I don't know if it's still at the Armories. But that's because we used to a few years ago when the big War Games convention fair up north, where I used to live in Doncaster, or when I was in Lancashire in Rochdale, was at Sheffield. It used to be the Crucible Triples, and then it moved to the Armories, and it was great because you went into the Armories, the big military museum store where all the armaments from the Holden days used to be, and you got entrance to the Armories, and you got entrance to the War Games convention, to Triples, sort of like a double whammy. All right, yeah, we did Abu Clear. Found it harder than we thought. I think that's why I got. Is it Abu Clear where they used the naval brigade? Or did we just use them because we needed more men? I can't remember what I did. Because the last 2 units I got for the Colonials were Naval Brigade and Egyptians. You know, they're pretty much all wearing white, marching with red fezzes on. And then they've got European officers. Oh yeah, the Waterloo displays that's the one that was made by the chap who was at Waterloo, wasn't it, years ago? Yeah, I saw that. They had them side by side. I'm right, aren't I? It was. I'm pretty sure it was made by a Victorian ex officer. I'm always worried because when I sound the most certain, that's usually when I'm the most completely wrong. Yeah, I went to university in Leeds. Neil, as I say, I'm from Doncaster. I went to Leeds Uni, and then I ended up doing missionary work in Lancashire. But my family all live, my family that live up north still, I've got a brother in Skipton, and I've got a brother and mum all live in Rotherham. I'm working, my brother works in Rotherham, but his wife works in Sheffield. Ah, right. Which is that the is that the oh gosh, I'm going to end up saying fuzzy wuzzies, but that's a sort of bit of a derogatory term, isn't it? What were they actually called? Oh, my brain hurts. Ridiculous. There's a poem about it, isn't there? Oh, answer. Got there in the end. Wish I'd thought of that earlier. Um, yeah, I'm down in Devon now, Neil. So I retired. Well, when we retired, we were up in Rochdale. So Leeds wasn't ever a tricky journey. But then my wife worked for Asda's, and my daughter had married a man in Bideford in North Devon. And my son, when he left university, he went to Reading. He got a job in Ilfracombe. Ah, thank you. Hardendower. Thank you. I'm going to make a note of that. I'm going to make a physical note rather than a mental note. And so we were seeing the kids by coming to Devon for like Christmas and holidays and birthdays. And my wife, just on off chance, went into Asda's in Bideford, where we live now, and said, I work for Asda's in a place called Rossendale between uh, Burnley and Rottenstall, it was called. So it was Rossendale Valley. I'm trying to think where it's between Clitheroe, Burnley way. And she just went in on the off chance, and she came out with a bit of paper saying, I start next Thursday. So we ended up coming down to Devon. And I'd retired. I was a teacher, so I could work anywhere really. Ah, yeah, very good. Well, at least bread is an edible commodity. It's not like he was sort of, I don't know, eating something that wasn't even consumable. I was just talking to Neil about our Leeds connection. Although I don't know if you're a football fan, but as a Doncaster Rovers supporter, I don't have happy memories of Leeds, especially not in the 70s with Don Revie and Norman Hunter. Was it Paul Reaney? Well, I like Jack Charlton, I must admit. And it was called Springett, the goalkeeper. I'm trawling my memory now. You might not even care. You probably certainly don't remember the Leeds side of the 70s with their little fancy tags on the socks because they were showing off. But very good. I don't know, that was a digression. I do that a lot. Yeah, well, to be honest, probably neither do we. But I was talking to my wife about our conversation on Facebooky thing, and I was telling her about where you lived and where you'd been living, and about you looking up Bideford on Google and so on. And I was thinking, well, yeah, I don't know. I couldn't point at many American states, to be honest. There's some obvious ones, but a lot. I'd be struggling to. My American knowledge is largely based on history. I know where things are. I know where Concord is and Boston. Um, oh, yeah, Harvey. That was dragging memories from the past. But yeah, I don't know about Neil, but my knowledge of America is a bit hit and miss. Even though my son lives there, I know where West Virginia is now, but I'm not sure. I knew there was a West Virginia as opposed to Virginia. And the states I could name were probably because of the American Civil War or the War of Independence. They weren't, once you get beyond the sort of modern states, the westerns and the post-Civil War expansions, I'm struggling really. And those Midwest ones, there's one right in the middle and it looks like a square. It's got no wiggly bits. Somebody's clearly just gone. There you go. I've state. And I know like about Santa Ana and the Alamo, so I know where that is. So yeah, I suppose military history is where most of these things are. Paul Harvey. Wow. Ah, right. It's what you know, don't you? I mean, there's a chap I watch on YouTube. It was like Tyler is called, and it's sort of a typical American commenting on UK castles, coastal towns, things, and he fascinating really to see. But he did and another chap I noticed the other day did a geography quiz, 10 questions about British geography, UK geography, and was beating himself up because he didn't know. But I couldn't do that about American geography. I'd be struggling. We have a program over here called Taskmaster, and quite often they do a thing. One of the rounds is called "Where's Kazakhstan?" and they either show a map of Europe, or a map of the UK, or a map of America, and you've got to point at things when they ask a question. Now, questions are things like, for example, where's the Washington Monument? And it's harder than you think. And even like UK questions, Josiah Wedgwood, who made Wedgwood pottery, and the potteries in the UK are famous. That's Stoke-on-Trent. But then when something, okay, I know that, but where's Stoke-on-Trent? You tend to know what you know, don't you? I wouldn't beat yourself up over not knowing specifics. But yeah, I mean, a lot of my knowledge is historical rather than geographical. And Europe, and once you get Eastern Europe, when you look now at all of my next door neighbours are Latvian. I know roughly Latvia's up a bit towards Russia. But there are sort of a number of states coming down there, sort of, it's the Baltic, and I wouldn't like to tell you which is which. Yeah, I bought the other day, I don't know if you remember it, but because I don't know how old you are, I'm guessing you're not as old as me. In the 70s, we used to play a really popular game called Battle of Little Big Horn. And I found a copy of it on eBay, and it was about 20 quid. And I bought it, and I expected it to be bits missing, and it was all there complete. So I have done some YouTube videos about it earlier on. But that's the closest I've come to. I do, like I say, my brother and I do the American Civil War, so I know more about the American Civil War, and that's because of the Ken Burns documentary, which I got right into. And also the War of 1812, but more from the Canadian point of view. Because one of the guys at the War Games Club, his son lives in Canada, and the Canadians consider the War of 1812, some of them even call it their War of Independence. There's some interesting action in that, and events and things. So I know a bit about the War of 1812. Yeah, I really like that. The Ken Burns thing. I struggle. I like there's a Vietnam War one, isn't there? And there's been, I think it's a different person. There's been a recent Vietnam documentary that's gone into the same sort of depth as the Ken Burns Civil War. Very informative. But yeah, the Ken Burns one had a big impact on me. That was interesting. Right, fellas. Well, I said to myself, I'm going to try to treat this like a proper TV program. And I'm coming up now to the end of my hour. And so I'm going to say thanks ever so much for being here. I do appreciate it. I shall be around all week, and I'll be here next week to continue if you fancy having a look. But thanks for being there, guys. I really, honestly do appreciate it. So I'm going to end this like I end everything I do by saying, Tra Chuck.